is the global security order undergoing a significant paradigm shift. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has just finished a whirlwind tour of Japan and China, where he had gone to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit at Tianjin. In the space of the last few days, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, has met some of the most critical leaders of the new multipolar world order. He's met the heads of state of Japan, of Russia, of China, and of course among the others. But there has been a meeting of the Russia-India-China trilateral as a part of the SCO Cooperation Summit, where about 20 other leaders had come, including the Prime Minister of Pakistan, reps from Turkey, Azerbaijan, etc., and the Central Asian country. I shall deal first with the need or the rationale of this geopolitical shift, paradigm shift, this kind of tectonic plate shift in the geopolitical architecture of global security. Donald Trump made a miscalculation. When he took charge as the President of the United States for the second time, he presumed that the unipolar world order was still very much extant and in place. This was a miscalculation. The unipolar world order had emerged in 1990 with the collapse of the Soviet Union, right? It's splintering into 15 different states with the core rump left in Russia, right? Now, the simple fact was that the unipolar movement had passed somewhere around the first decade of the 21st century. It was over. Now, the world is in a multipolar, polycentric world order, where there are a number of poles of powers apart from the United States. There is Europe, there is Russia, there is China, there is India, there is Japan, there is Brazil, there is South Africa, to count some of the critical power centers in the world today. Donald Trump decided to select a single matrix, on trying to restore the greatness of America. There were structural problems. There are structural problems. In the United States, the middle class is shrinking, the rich are growing richer, the poor are growing poorer. I mean, they have their set of problems. There is $27 trillion worth of debt which has to be paid. So far, the United States has gotten away just by printing dollars, because dollar is the global reserve currency which is now under threat. So, Donald Trump's solution was to go for trades and tariffs to rejuvenate industry in the United States itself. Now, the point at issue is that the monthly wages in the United States are $2,000. In most of the states, in states like California, it can go up to $5,000 a month. In Shanghai, a worker has to be paid about $320 a month. In India, it is about $290 a month. In Vietnam, it is about $190 a month. So, I mean, even with the worst of tariffs, I fail to understand how the United States can compete with the rest of these third world countries, especially China, especially India, especially Vietnam, etc., Indonesia. These are all coming up where labor is cheaper, much, much cheaper. So, even if you impose tariffs, the tariffs firstly we have to be paid by the American people. So, this is a disincentive for them to buy local, to not import but to buy local. But the simple fact is there are question marks on whether it will work. And then Donald Trump went on his trades and tariff crusade. He went like a bull in a China shop. And above all, he targeted the friends of the United States. I mean, he targeted Europe. He made Europe crawl, beg, come as supplicant to the Oval House and sit for a master class like school children. Europe caved in, collapsed, promised to pay about invest $750 billion in the United States. Donald Trump put pressure on Japan, on South Korea, on Taiwan, on Canada, on Mexico, and above all, then he slapped 50% tariffs on India on the specious plea that it was buying Russian oil. You asked us to buy that oil to keep the global oil prices stabilized so that they won't cross $120 a barrel and bring about a rampant inflation globally and in the United States itself. The Biden administration had asked India to please step up to the plate and keep buying Russian oil. Otherwise, the pressure on Middle Eastern and the other oil sources would be so much as to drive the prices of oil up. The United States itself is buying uranium, it is buying fertilizers, it is buying rare earths from Russia. The trade has gone up since the war started. I mean, it's an amazing, if you have to give excuses, give us better excuses. But there is something else to it. Donald Trump also, what really got India's goat was that Donald Trump invited Mullah Asim Munir, the so-called failed marshal Asim Munir, to the United States not once but twice in the last 2 months. Army general was called to the Oval House, to the White House, to the Oval Office, to have a luncheon date with the President of the United States, unheard of. And this is a country with which India has just fought a war. So I don't know what Donald Trump was trying to do. He was trying to kick India in the teeth. For what? For trying to be friends with the United States. 30 years of diplomatic effort and energy have been expended by India, by Indian diplomats, by 4 successive administrations, bipartisan consensus that the United States needs India. Why does it need India? Because of geopolitical factors, considerations, that if China is its main adversary, China is the main competition, if China has to be balanced, the United States needs India and Japan. The United States has kicked India in the teeth, not only by slapping the 50% tariffs, but by going on a love fest with Pakistan, an implacable foe. Does he realize the degree of innate hostilities between these two countries? And I mean, you think you can just snap a finger like that and say, okay, you are friends. And it would have been political harakiri for the Prime Minister to go and meet Asim Munir in the White House as he was trying to get him. I'm sure he has to be considerate about the political interests of the people who calls his best friends. But all these norms were thrown to the wind. 50% tariffs were slapped on India. But the good news is that India is a civilizational state. We are done with being a colony. 250 years of colonization slavery is adequate. As it is, slavery was banned in the United States after the Civil War. How can the United States simply order India not to buy Russian oil when it is cheap, when it suits us, when it is economically beneficial? Right? We are refining that oil and you are buying it from us. United States is buying it from us. You know it is coming from Russia. Then don't buy, as our foreign minister said very rightly. Don't buy if you don't want to. Why is Europe buying? And I've already mentioned how the United States is buying uranium, is buying fertilizers, is buying rare earths from Russia, and this has gone up. The whole logic is so convoluted that it baffles any rational thinking mind. India took a stand, and then we found the whole world discovering that they also need to show spine. Right? Japan recalled its top trade negotiator from the United States, and it has been making its unhappiness known over the deal that has been struck. Right? Canada cancelled the purchase of F-35 jet fighters. And there is gloom and doom in Boeing factory just across the border. Right? So the simple fact is that this was overreach. It was overreach, imperial overstretch of a magnitude that was now getting a bit too hot to handle for the rest of the world. Like a bull in a china shop, as I said, Donald Trump was going on a smash and grab spree, imposing tariffs left, right and center, 50% on Brazil, 50% on India. So, what about the geopolitical underpinnings? You know, when administrations used to take charge in Washington previously, they used to issue a national security strategy for the next 5 years of that presidential term. Long-term thinking is the way in which governments function. They can strategize, they can plan, they can work for the long term. I mean, people don't plan on a minute-to-minute basis like a shifting kaleidoscope. We could have lived with the tariffs. If you want to buy from us, fine, we'll sell to the other BRIC countries. We'll find alternative markets. Yes, you hurt our people. Quite obviously, you kicked our carpet weavers in their belly, our garment makers in their belly, etc., etc. Of course, you haven't stopped the pharmaceuticals which suit you. But the simple fact of the matter is that you have caused harm here, but we could have lived with it. We won't sell to the United States. To hell with you. As it is, India doesn't sell much outside. Our economy is powered domestically. 60% plus of our economy, GDP, comes from domestic consumption. And that is going to go up to 70%. So we could have lived with it. But it was difficult to live with the Pakistan tamasha. And it was difficult to live with the fact that he wants to treat us like a vassal state. We are not friends. We are supposed to be vassals. And we have a strong objection to being vassals. We don't like being vassals. Pakistan may be very happy to bootlick. 250 years of colonial habits can't be ditched so easily. They can bootlick for all they want. India is not going to do it. It is a civilizational state. It is 1.4 billion population, the fourth largest economy, heading for the third, space power, nuclear power of consequence. We have some self-respect. So India showed spine. India said no. And when India said no, I said, Japan and Canada have also found their voice, and so will the other countries. Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he should get it now for bringing India and China together. And not only India and China, Russia, India, China triangle, actualizing it. He, I think, deserves the Nobel Peace. He's now earned it. Honestly, he's now earned it. But he's also, trash canned 30 years of persistent effort by a number of governments in India, number of administration, 4 or 5 in the United States, bipartisan consensus and the rest of it. He has turned geopolitics on its head. In a illogical emphasis on a single matrix of trade and tariffs, he has stood geopolitics on its head. He is confounded between friends and foes. He singled out the friends for specific punishment and left the foes alone. Now, this illogical structure was not likely to stand because the rest of the world has moved past that unipolar power movement. Now let's get to the SCO summit. And as it was said, why this outreach to China at this moment? For very good reasons. This outreach did not start now. This outreach had started last year. And the Prime Minister made some very critical observations there. He said the borders between India and China are now peaceful and stable. We have started the disengagement process, and then we'll have to go to de-escalation, move back of troops, etc. I think all that will follow, and he made it plain that we should resolve the border issue. on the issue of terror. The optics were terrific. The joint statement issued at the end of this SCO summit condemned the Pahalgam massacre and said action should be taken against its perpetrators, and Shahbaz Sharif was sitting there in that same summit. The whole world could see the way Shahbaz Sharif was treated like a leper, a pariah, like a butler. He was standing. Pakistan has earned it. China is not blind. You think China that has loaned about $90 billion to Pakistan. They have a debt of $90 billion they owe to China, right? Almost. China has invested billions of dollars in the China-Pakistan economic corridor, right? And to cap it all, 80% of Pakistan's military equipment comes from China. And yet this Pakistan, this turncoat diabolical state, dumps China, goes straight into the lap, Asim Munir, goes straight into the lap of Donald Trump, who's threatening to, make life miserable for China. Are the Chinese blind? Do the Chinese not see these shenanigans of Pakistan? A turncoat state, diabolical state. They've stabbed every person who tried to befriend them in the back. It was Donald Trump himself who used to say that they swindled us of $30 billion and sheltered Osama bin Laden. That he's now suddenly become a darling of Asim Munir, or Asim Munir has become Donald Trump's sweetheart, that we do not know. But Asim Munir is acting as if he's purchased Donald Trump and his entire family with that Bitcoin deal. Are relations with India going to be torpedoed because of that Bitcoin deal? This is becoming baffling. The rationale for long-term policies is knocked out when such irrational, factors are introduced. Such irrational factors are introduced. The long-term perspectives are junked, thrown into the trash can. Then there is serious problems. The relations between India and China are on a positive trajectory. India and China are friends, not rivals. This is what Xi Jinping said, and this is a major reset in relations. It could have implications for the emergent global order. And quite obviously, there are tremors in Washington. I shall talk of them a little later. One of the prime reasons of going to the SCO summit was to meet the President Putin. I think we need to do some very critical defense deals with Russia. I don't think we should now. We have defied the United States on the issue of oil purchase from Russia. I think we should go the whole hog, follow that logic to its logical conclusions, and also buy Russian weapons that we now need badly. We need minimum 2 squadrons of Su-57 stealth jet fighters. 2 more squadrons of the S-400 have to come. We need to get those expedited. And we need to buy more squadrons of S-500, and there are a whole lot of other arenas in defense where India and Russia can cooperate to mutual benefit. Great mutual benefit. And I think the time has come that we should do that. But one was a little surprised to see that the discussion was more on Ukraine and the peace in Ukraine. I personally feel that, at the end of the day, if we have to choose between Ukraine and Russia, I for one would choose the Russians, because they have done a lot more for us than Ukraine. Ukraine started this war, really. It behaved like Pakistan, rented out its territory and waged a war, proxy war against Russia on behalf of Joe Biden's era United States and Europe. And they are intent on making Ukraine fight to the last Ukrainian. Unfortunately, the bottom of the barrel in terms of manpower is now being reached. It is tragic. Yes, the war should end. If we can help end it, I don't see how. If we can help end it, we have made that effort. And even Vladimir Putin has appreciated the efforts of India and China. Vladimir Putin expressed great happiness in the emergence of a new world order which would be equitable, where all countries would be treated equally. And we would get out of this master-slave paradigm. Colonialism is over, is history. And I think this realization should now dawn in Washington and elsewhere. He also expressed great satisfaction in India and China sinking their differences and having a thaw, a meaningful thaw. Yang Yi offered to sell India rare earths, which he is not giving to the United States. He offered to give us tunnel boring machines, fertilizers, etc. I think that's a good augury. For starters, both the countries, China has permitted the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which is emotively a very sore point it was with the population, with the people of India. 1.4 billion people each, 2.8 billion people. It would be very good for mankind if they came together in positive relations. Can we trust China? Straightforward question. Trust was destroyed in 1962, then restored somewhat in the Deng Xiaoping era, when we did have peace and tranquility for 3 decades, right? We were inching back to normalcy when Galwan came again and has given a rude shock to that trust. So trust will take some time to re-establish. It cannot overnight emerge, but we are seeing the beginnings of a process where both sides see mutual benefit in scaling down hostilities, in having better harmonious relations. These are two civilizational states. China is a very pragmatic state, and I think the way to deal with China is to go for quid pro quo, tit for tat approach, mirror imaging approach. We will deal with you, sir, exactly as you deal with us. If you are nice to us, we will be nice. If Yang Yi came to India, then he went to Pakistan, right? Even though China has now realized what a double-faced country Pakistan is. So when the Indian Prime Minister went to China, before that he visited Japan. If we are required to live with the India-China-Pakistan relationship, I'm afraid China would not mind if India has relationships with other Asian countries like Japan, like-minded countries like Japan, like Vietnam, like South Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, etc. So I am very certain that if we are pragmatic, and the Chinese are a pragmatic people, they realize the prime strategic direction is towards Taiwan and the East Coast. And it would be strategic folly for them to activate and open their Western theatre, Western front at the same time. They have come to this realization because the PLA has been forced to stay in the cold climes of Tibet for 5 winters now. The 5th winter, I think, is coming. So, I mean, it is a wasteful of effort and resources, and it makes common sense for both India and China to come together in a Russia-India-China triangle, strengthen BRICS globally, when the United States is becoming a very willful global hegemon who is intent on kicking all and sundry, friends and foes alike. That destroys the basis for long-term relationships between nation-states. I'm sure even in the United States, there is strong articulation of the fact that it is a major self-goal for the United States to, lose India and to try and suck up to Pakistan. It is a major self-goal. It sort of erodes the entire basis of geopolitical calculations where India and United States were supposed to have a strategic partnership to ensure power balance with a rising militarily aggressive China with a great maritime and military footprint. So, that entire basis of trust has been eroded. It will take a long time to establish trust between the two democracies which have shared values. That was never enough to get us two together. It was shared geopolitical interests which got us together. And with Donald Trump now changing the entire matrix of relations to purely trade and tariffs, I think that has stood the entire edifice of geopolitical thinking on its head. In conclusion, Henry Kissinger had warned the United States never to take on more than one Asian power at a time, major Asian power at a time, the three major powers being Russia, India, China. Donald Trump has violated those basic tenets of geopolitics, grand strategy, and there are strong protests within the United States itself. Nikki Haley has registered her protest, Tulsi Gabbard, Bolton, the former NSA of Donald Trump himself, they've all said the United States is making a grievous mistake. And there are some indications of damage control from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State himself, and the ambassador designate to India. There is need for damage control because damage has actually been done. We do hope it's not too late. But a new power equation is emerging, and the visits of the Prime Minister to Japan and China have been monumental, and they will be in the pages of history, very significant landmark events at a time of a major historical inflection point.